How's it going, everybody? For today's beer review, we're going to be taking a look at Coop Ale Works F5 IPA. So this is F5 IPA by a brewery called Coop Ale Works. I had a very good friend of mine who went up to Oklahoma, and while he was there, I asked him to pick me up some stuff, some Prairie Brewery beers, because, you know, that's where they're based out of, and that's probably, and it's one of the best places you can get their stuff. And so while he was there at the liquor store, he picked me up a couple of cool things, and on the liquor store owner's recommendation, he had asked him, he said, what would you say is your best-selling beer in the whole store? And he said, F5 IPA. I run out of this stuff like crazy. So going strictly just off of his recommendation, he went ahead and picked this up as an extra for me, which is cool. And I know nothing about it. I don't know anything about this brewery. I know nothing about this beer. I've never even heard of this before he gave it to me. So I don't really know what to expect from it. It could be a hit or it could be a miss. There's lots of information on the can. It says 100 plus IBUs. 6.8% alcohol by volume, which is a good ABV, and it says 11 SRM. I have no clue what that stands for. On the back it says Coop Ale Works, Oklahoma City. A straightforward malt body supports the distinctive bouquet of Columbus and Falconer's flight hops that impart citrus, grapefruit, and pine notes characteristic of the West Coast style. F5 is a belligerent hop reckoning. We'll see. My IPA glass broke, unfortunately. I'm having to get a new one. So in the meantime, I'm going to use a standard, I guess they call these English pint glasses or pub glasses. So that's what we'll be using. So without further ado, let's crack this can open and see what F5 is like. Alrighty. Straight out of the can, the color is kind of a nice clear orangish gold. I'm going to give this a pretty aggressive pour here because it seems to have a quite low head potential. Yeah, head potential is extremely low, which is surprising for the ABV and the style of beer that it is. It came up to about a half finger of just slightly off-white colored head, and it's dissipating pretty fast. Holding this one up into the light, it is quite murky. I wouldn't say unfiltered, I don't see anything floating around in it, but it's a murky, just kind of slightly orange-hued gold, as you can see. It looks fairly nice in the glass. As far as the smell is, the smell's pretty good, I won't lie. It's got pine, kind of like an earthy rainwater thing going on. Grapefruit. Maybe just a little bit of orange citrus. The main thing I'm noticing that I'm excited about is the earthiness and the pine. I like when the IPAs are kind of more on that savory side. You get a lot of those that are just so malt forward that they're almost like drinking syrup or caramel, and they're just real sweet, and they have that huge abundance of tropical fruit, which isn't a bad thing. Sometimes I'm in the mood for that, and they're, you know, almost borderline like barley wines. But most of the time, I prefer the more savory ones that have like pine, bitterness, grapefruit peel, those types of things, dank, that kind of stuff. So that's what this is smelling like. It's hopefully going to be, but we won't know until we taste it. So let us give it a taste. Yeah, that's good. It's definitely a, it's not over the top bitter, but once again, this is coming from somebody who has a palate that's pretty much desensitized to bitterness. So for a seasoned IPA drinker, it's not going to be too over the top bitter, but it is definitely bitter biased, meaning there's not a whole lot of sweetness here, which is something that lately I've come to look for and crave. Used to, I was really into the sweet, fruity IPAs, but I'm really starting to get into the very dank and hoppy IPAs that just have a lot of bitterness and savory flavors and not too much sweetness. And this one's definitely that. It's got just the right amount of, I wouldn't call it grapefruit sweetness. The bitterness is where the grapefruit lies. This sweetness, it's kind of somewhere between orange and pineapple, but it's very, very mild. As far as development goes, sweet orange and pineapple. I would say mostly orange right up front. That fades into kind of natural rainwater and earthiness and pine, and then it finally ends. Then when I drink a quite bitter, decently bitter hop finish, the mouthfeel is medium. It's not super creamy, but it's not like just thin water either. It's kind of good mouthfeel on it. Actually, you know, I'm going to go back and revoke my previous statement. This is bitter. Now that I've taken a couple of sips of it, it's quite bitter, and in turn, that means it's quite impressive. The bitterness is very long lingering. It has a very, very long finish, and what I mean by that is, even though the sweetness and the pine and the rainwater earthiness and all that jazz are they come and go, the bitterness, I mean, it's still, from my last sip, I'm still got bitterness in the back of the tongue and then slightly in the throat. It's just now starting to fade, so that's impressive. I can usually kind of gauge an IPA's and how impressive it is on its bitterness, because a lot of IPAs that people say are bitter, I don't find it to be that bitter, because I've just desensitized the hell out of my taste buds from just drinking a bunch of stuff like Arrogant Bastard and Palate Wrecker and all that jazz, and enjoying it. So when I can find one that even gives me a punch in the mouth, I like it. So this is actually going to get very high marks. And I will say to the man who's watching that gave me this, good recommendation, sir. I see why this is his most famous IPA. It's really good. So as far as ratings go, in style, I'd have to give this like a 99, and I have 100 in the style. I don't like handing out 100s in the style, because I think probably 98% of all beers in the world have some room where they could improve. There's very few perfect beers out there, but this is pretty damn close to being perfect. I think this could do, if I was going to do anything to it, not much. Maybe just a tad bit thicker in the mouthfeel, and maybe brew it with some lemon drop hops. Give it that kind of like slightly sweet and tart lemon taste to it. But that's any IPA. I think any IPA could do with a lemon drop. That's just me. My own personal score, perfect 100. I'm enjoying this a lot. So my advice to you is, if you're in the area, or you just happen to see F5 IPA by Coop Ale Works, give it a try. This is one of the best IPAs I've had in a long time. I'm quite pleasantly surprised by it. So that has been my review of Coop Ale Works F5 IPA. Hope you guys enjoyed my beer review as always, and stay tuned for the next one.